Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Rabbi. So good to see you.
Good morning, good to see you too. Alice, I think we might be new to each other. Hi, I'm Rabbi Silver. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Hello, Diane. Hello, Ellie. Very nice to meet you. Oh, here comes another. The room is populating, but it's populating slowly this morning. It's a slow Sunday, so we're going to give it a minute or two just to get ready. It looks as though people are discovering the link. The link was unfortunately misted on our calendar as 9 p.m. rather than 9 a.m. And so people who populated, hi Jen, people who populated their calendar with the link are not going to get a reminder until 9 o'clock tonight, which is not very helpful, I am observing. Not very helpful at all. I am just strapping up my arthritic forefinger here so that it doesn't niggle me. There we go. Ah, here come people. No, this is all good. This is all good. We are going to be fine. We are going to be fine. In the meantime, let me just see. I've definitely got some folks who are new to me. Hello, hello, Rena. I'm so happy to see you. Folks who are new to me, if you would just drop me, it doesn't have to be a message for everyone in the room. It can be a private message to me, but just drop me a private message in the chat to say how it is that you came to the class. Because I am interested to know. I think that Gloria and I might not have met in real life either. And I'm just going to keep vamping for another 3 minutes to see if we get more people so that I don't have to repeat myself. So what can I tell us? I can pontificate a little bit about what today is. I can say that today is Lag BaOmer. As it happens, this was not deliberate in the planning of this class, but today is Lag BaOmer. It's the 33rd day of our counting of the Omer, and it is it's regarded as being a kind of turning point, a sort of within the counting of the Omer, which is the 49 days that we count between Pesach and Shavuot, it's regarded as this sort of turning point. As we leave the email behind, and then we move steadily towards Shavuot and towards whatever our experience this year is going to be of revelation. And interestingly, and very appropriate for the start of a new short course, the tone of Lag BaOmer is enlightenment. So that might be the spiritual reason that underlies the tradition of lighting bonfires. It's regarded, it's the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, so says the tradition. He is the man to whom the Zohar, one of the key books of Jewish mysticism, is attributed. It's told in his voice. Historically, we can be nearly 100% certain that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did not write the Zohar, but that's not the point, okay? Just like historically, it's nearly 100% clear that King David didn't write the Psalms, except maybe one. But this is one of those things where it really doesn't matter. The wisdom is the wisdom, and it is good wisdom wherever it is coming down the turnpike from. So today is Rashbi's, if you take all his initials and smush them together, you get the word Rashbi. Today is Rashbi's birthday, and it's almost always celebrated by fire and enlightenment. All that to say that it is really lovely to be working on a new project this morning. So I am going to kick us off now with the Shechianu, because that's a really good bracha for this morning. And then I'm going to invite our dedications for our learning before we begin. I try always to start my classes with dedications and a bracha for learning. So as we say Shechianu, I'm going to open up the space in the class for us to dedicate our learning. It can be to a single person, it can be to lots of people, it can be for a happy reason, it can be for a sad reason. I found over the course of doing this with classes, it also enables us to connect to each other in a much deeper way. And that's important when we're doing this kind of work. So, Shechianu, if you have a dedication, drop it in the chat. Thank you to the new people who are messaging me. I appreciate. And then we will say the bracha for learning and we will begin. So, Shechianu first. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam. Shechianu, V'kivanu, V'higianu, Lazman Hazeh. I'm sorry, that's the old wiring. Yeah, I don't normally begin with Shechianu until there's a reason. And please keep the dedications coming in the chat. I feel that, let's see, we can dedicate to the hostages this morning for sure. I always like to give them a moment in our learning, and I do somehow believe, I think, that the merit of learning goes out into the world and is capable of changing things out there. So that's mine. And the bracha for, thank you, Ellie. The bracha for learning is the same as the bracha for candles, but the Shabbat candles, but the words on the end are different. Thank you, Leah. The words on the end are la'asok b'divrei Torah, to become involved in words of Torah or in matters of Torah. So please keep the dedications coming. Thank you. And I'll lift up Surah and Florine, who are very much members of this demographic within IKAR. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Thank you. We say amen. We say amen to each other's bracha. Okay, so let me share some slides. The first slide is an important one with which I always begin. And we will be talking a lot about this over the course of today's class. Eldering in progress. By this, I mean that it is desirable and appropriate to create a space for our eldering. a little bit of background here. I was hired on at IKAR originally part-time. I am delighted, by the way, to tell you that I'm going full-time from July the 1st, to cherish our demographic within IKAR and to ask myself the big question of, in the same way as we ask, how do we pray at IKAR, and how are we intentional about that? How do we serve the world at IKAR, and how are we intentional about that? How do we walk that message in the world? Approximately 25% of the IKAR membership now is in or coming towards eldering. So we ask ourselves, how do we get older at IKAR? How do we do that the IKAR way? And how do we find depth and meaning in this process? And how do we honor it within our community? So that translated initially into one live conscious aging circle, and over the winter, one Zoom conscious aging group, where I chose to use one of the few Jewish books in this area of what's called conscious aging or conscious eldering. A little bit of a dated book, but it has a particular spiritual inclination about it that I found very meaningful. And it's always a good idea to teach what you find meaningful, because that adds a certain something to the teaching. So we studied the first book by Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalomi, Reb Zalman. There's his picture there. He was a leading light of the Jewish renewal movement, and he lived in Boulder, Colorado. I know that some of you have already come across his teachings, and one or two of you have even met him before he left the world. And the first book that he wrote about aging was called From Aging to Saging, and that was the syllabus of our first set of conscious aging classes. And there was a demand at the end of those classes to look more deeply into his second book. He wrote the first one in his 60s, and this one came from when he was in his 80s. And it's different. And the work is different, and his approach to the eldering is different. And as you can see from the picture, with this, he had a co-author that he didn't have for the first book. All this to say that if you were not part of the Zoom Conscious Aging class and you didn't read From Aging to Saging, I strongly recommend it as an addition to your bookshelf. You can also find Reb Zalman on YouTube talking about aging, and there are other recordings and other versions of the books and workbooks on that book as well. If you are beginning to build a conscious aging practice, all of that is good to have. That said, these three classes are a standalone, and as I say, they come by request. They've bubbled up from the floor, and you'll see that they take us to a different kind of headspace and a different kind of iteration. Lovely, lovely. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Rena. So our book for this course is the December Project. If you haven't got the book, I would suggest that you get hold of a copy and read it. It's a slender but deep read. So it's readable in a few sittings, and it's very thought-provoking. If you have not yet read it, I would suggest that you add it to your bookshelf. It will enrich the learning that we do in this class, and everything that we're doing in this class flows out of that book in one way or another. We're going to do, okay, so the December Project itself. This is the quotation from Reb Zalman right at the beginning of the book. You're in the December of your years, and you know you're coming to the end of your tour of duty. What is the spiritual work of this time, and how do you prepare for the mystery? Let me just give that a moment to sit on the screen so that we can orientate ourselves towards it, because it's quite a big deal. Okay. And part of the reason that it is a big deal is that on the whole, we live in a society that does not do death incredibly well. I want to plop that word out at the beginning. It's an important word. It's not everything there is to the December Project, far from it, but the December Project is inspired by questions that we ask about death. So these, and I'll give us a second to read in a moment, these are December Project questions from the other author's website, Sarah Davidson's website. And as you read them over, let me give you a moment just to read over. As you read them over, you can be asking yourselves, well, how much does any of this kind of thing figure in my life? How has any wisdom in respect of these questions made its way into my life? And I'll ask you to just pop the answers to that in my chat. You know, have these kind of questions been figuring in your life? And if so, how? Coherently, incoherently, nagging away on the edges of your attention, something else? Let me know, let us know. And if you feel comfortable sharing that with the room, I know that we don't quite know the room yet, but if you feel comfortable sharing that with the room, that could be very helpful. I will say that for myself, at nearly 64, these issues do not blip at all. In the society in which we live, in the secular society in which we live, and even in the Jewish circles in which I move, these questions are only just beginning to surface. And there isn't a coherent Jewish framework for preparing for them. I was saying the other day that we do after death really quite well in Judaism. It has a structure, it has mitzvot attached to it, it has obligations, there's a roadmap. None of that is true, I want to suggest, for the period before. And I don't mean the, Diane, thank you, thank you. Yes, Leah, yes. Diane, you're in the minority, I would say. Or at least within the society in which we live. Yeah. Thank you, Rena. Important thing, thank you, Ellie, thank you. Important thing for this class, keep the chat line open. Keep your eye on the chat. One of the fundamental things about working with this demographic that is different to working with children or even what we might call the middle-aged demographic is that we are all teachers for each other. We are all sources of wisdom for each other. So the chat in these classes is rich, and your contributions to it are deeply welcome. Okay. So it's already becoming clear that there is a misalignment between the questions that we're asking ourselves and the questions that the environments in which we move are inviting us to ask ourselves. Yeah, it's interesting to contemplate how these questions make us feel, or how available these questions are for us to ask each other. And that will partly be the work of this class. I never teach unless I have sort of 4 or 5 aims all at once. And one of the aims of this class is to demystify these questions to some extent, and to be able consciously to adopt them as guideposts for how we are living our lives in the here and the now. Okay? So this is our territory. This is December territory, if I can put it that way. I want to deal with a little bit of administrivia. 3 classes, only 3. We're touching in on these questions to an extent. We're finding out where we want to go with these questions within our community. I do recommend that you bring writing materials to class, because that collective wisdom is going to want to be captured. Please journal after class if you wish. For Zoom, it's very simple. We all have wisdom about this at the moment. As a courtesy to each other, we try to have only one person talking in the big room. And I'm grateful to you for withholding your actual voices and putting them in the chat instead. I propose to compile a mailing list for this class. Thank you, Ellen. I propose to compile a mailing list for this class, and on that mailing list, I will circulate 2 things after every class. I will circulate copies of the slides so that people who might not have been able to make the class can get a sense of what we did in the class. And also, with your permission, I will circulate a recording of the class for your own reference, and to capture the wisdom, and also for the people who were not able to attend. Those recordings, and I feel strongly about this, will not be available through the IKAR YouTube channel. This is not that kind of work. So people who are invested in the class will receive the recordings. People who are not will not. Okay, this is one of the ways that we keep our space safe for this kind of deep work. So my intention is, after every class, to circulate a mailing list. That's been one of the ways that we have created the community, our community in this class. So if there's anybody on this call who doesn't want their name on the mailing list, then please let me know privately by email. And know that the recordings will be circulated to a select group of people, and that way you have the chance to monitor your own contribution to the class accordingly. So the modalities of our class are already becoming clear, the learning modalities, okay? There's the big room, the group room. Often within the big room, mine will be the voice that you hear through your ears, but the chat is our opportunity to share voices for each other. There's personal work that you can elect to do, private work, journaling, jottings, an open file on your laptop while you're in class. And none of that work needs to be shared with other people. That's for you and you alone. And then we are going to do some directed work in breakout groups as part of the class, partly so that you connect with each other. These classes, another aim of these classes, to demystify death, to get to know Reb Zalman's work better, to get to know each other better, but also to bond this part of the IKAR community on a deeper level. And that doesn't happen if I sit at the front of the room and pontificate at you. That only happens when you are connecting with each other, and I leave it to your wisdom as to how much you share with each other. Okay, that always varies depending on which breakout group is happening, what the subject is, and so on and so on. And I trust your wisdom. You're practiced with this. Brings me to our touchstones. One of my other resources for aging wisdom is a wonderful chap called Parker Palmer. I'll pop him in the chat. Some of you may already know him. He has what to say about this territory as well. His book about dying or preparing for dying is called, his December book is called On the Edge of Everything, and is a collection of some of his essays, a beautiful book. And his rules for soul circles, because this is what we are. When you do this kind of work, you're in a soul circle. These are his rules for this kind of work. And they're important because they are the way that we hold space for each other. So let me just run through them. I won't run through them every class, but I will put the slide up every class to orient us. We give and receive welcome. We try to be present for each other as fully as possible. I understand that there are going to be days where you're going to need to sit with your camera off. I get it, but in small groups for each other, I invite us to show up or to explain or to share with others why you might not want to. There is a difference in a breakout room to showing up with your face and showing up without it. So I leave that to you. We speak our truth. And again, this is the great thing about working with this demographic. We know this to be true. We speak our truth in ways that respect the truth of others. We don't pressure each other with our revelations and our wisdom. We respond with questions to each other because that takes us deeper. That moves the conversation one level down. I will add that we contribute by invitation and not by demand. This is not, and it always makes me giggle ever so slightly in a class where this is the subject, but none of my classes are a share or die environment, this one included. So we do not have to share. We permit each other to be present without sharing. And if we are sharing, we don't fix each other. We don't save each other. We don't give unprompted advice to each other. And that normally means saying, I have something to say about that. Would it be okay if I shared it? And we sure as sure do not correct each other. You know, I think you're wrong about that, because when it happened to me, yeah, those that it's tempting to do, but those are shutdowns, and we want to keep the space open. So I commend all of that to your already existing wisdom. And I will add that this is a confidential space. And that means that we do not share what goes on in this class without clear permission. One of the reasons that I circulate a mailing list is that we can seek permission from each other to say, and in my life, such and such a thing came up, and I thought of what you said in class, would it be okay to share it? And I'll share it. And the other thing is that we share without names. Yeah, in that circumstance. So I was in a class with somebody who said is different from saying Diane said. And we need these, we need this safety in order to be able to look deeply inside ourselves and know that in this class we are not on display. That's not the purpose. Everybody good? Let me stop the share for the moment, and let's just give each other a wave in the window or a hand up if you're behind your camera, just to say that we're in. Okay, we're in on this. Give me some kind of signal so that the space is, so that we know the space is safe. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good. Okay, so with confidentiality in mind, we are going to work together soon, I promise. We're moving, all of that was by way of intro. But as the classes go on, the intros get shorter and the good stuff gets longer. I want to offer a prayer of gratitude. You'll see when you read the book that gratitude is a central practice of Reb Zalman's. And it's also a very important way to begin inner work of whatever kind. It's a really good starting point. And often we skip over. It's like, okay, I'm going to talk about death now. It behooves us to stop, notice, and be grateful at the beginning, because it opens the heart for the work that is coming ahead. And this is true in every spiritual tradition. This is why traditionally, as Jews, we begin our day with Modani. Begin with gratitude. Gratitude is the touchstone. Gratitude is the starting point. If you do not yet know the beautiful work of John O'Donohue, I recommend him from the very bottom of my heart. And I wonder if there is somebody in the room who would be willing to read our gratitude prayer to lead us into our work. Thank you, Ellen.
I give thanks for arriving safely in a new dawn, for the gift of eyes to see the world, the gift of mind to feel at home in my life, the waves of possibility breaking on the shore of dawn, the harvest of the past that awaits my hunger, and all the furtherings this new day will bring.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, time to introduce ourselves to each other with what we want to share. And thank you to the folks who've been introducing themselves privately to me. This is a little different. In the chat, please just share your name, your nickname, if you have a preferred nickname, your pronouns, if you wish to share your pronouns, and why it is that you're interested in this work, what you want the members of the group to know about why you are interested in this work. I'll stop the share, I think, so that we're bigger for each other. Your name, your nickname, if you have one, and why you are interested in this work. Oh, the Reb Nachman class is tomorrow night. The Reb Nachman class is tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. But Leah, you are welcome to stay or leave as you wish. Thank you for your honesty. Gloria, thank you. Yes, Susan. Yes. Jen, thank you. And thank you, Lydia. Thank you, Jen. See you soon. Thank you, Ellie. Yes, lovely. Hi, Rena. Hello, Judy. Yes, that's fine. That's fine. And Ellen, thank you. Thank you. Diane, Dina in Jewish Space. I didn't know that about you. Thank you. Okay, Dina. And And other questions, what draws you to this work, Diane, that you're ready to share with the class? And thank you, everybody, for being so forthcoming. Thank you. Scrolling back through the chat in a class like this is always a good thing to do. Beautiful, folks. Thank you. And thank you for giving it thought. And I will suggest as a segue to the work that we're going to do this morning, that in answering that question, we've already begun the work. Yeah, in answering that question, in the turning of our thoughts towards it, given that we live in a society that is avoidant, if you want, of these questions, in turning our thoughts towards it, we have already begun our work for this morning. So please, if you haven't shared yet and you wish to, please keep the introductions coming while I introduce what we're going to be doing today. So here are our prompting questions, and now I hope some of the things that I've been saying in the introduction will begin to make sense. The book, the December project book, begins with a description quite early on of Reb Zalman's room. Yes, his basement. Yeah. So let me just share a description from the book of his actual physical room. Okay. I'm on page 5 of my edition, which is the one with the picture on the cover. Might be different in your book if you already have the book, but listen in. Our meetings, though, became a ritual. At 10 in the morning, I would drive to his home in Boulder, Colorado, at the base of the Flatirons, gray, triangular-shaped mountains jutting out over fields that, depending on the season, are covered with snow or ablaze with wildflowers. I'd ring the bell to let him know that I'd arrived, then open the front door, which was rarely locked. Removing my shoes, I'd walk down to the basement, which is Reb Zalman's domain, a warren of dark rooms for praying and working and meeting people. The rooms feel jumbled and chaotic, containing everything from an electric organ and a treadmill to portraits of rabbis going back generations, Hebrew prayer flags, shelves of books, DVDs and CDs, and an astonishing amount of techno clutter. Computers, giant screens, numerous phones, a video camera, tripod, lights, a dozen voice recorders, and wires running in every direction. Okay, so just engage your imagination with that for just a moment, all right? What becomes very clear over the course of the book is that that space is not the space in which he generates his wisdom. So I'm inviting us in this session to consider, it's a few things. One is to make the conscious decision, I'm going to make space for this work, which is already a turning away from our host culture. 2, I'm going to think about the physical space in which I want to do this work. And 3, I'm going to ask myself why the space is important to me and see where it takes me. Everybody clear? Let me just look at the chat. so that we can thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Diane, we will get there. Gloria, thank you. Dina, sorry, we'll get there. Can't do it all in one session, but I promise we'll get there. Gloria, we will miss you. Welcome back next week. Okay. Jane, bracha. Lovely. Thank you. Okay. So this is what we're going to be doing in our breakout rooms. I'm going to put us 2 or 3 to a breakout room. And I am going to ask that we explore, first of all, our, whether we are ready to create a space in our lives to dedicate to this work and how it would look. There's a Hebrew concept, it's like a sort of rabbinical school yeshiva-y concept called makom kavua. And makom kavua means a set place, a set physical place. We see it in action in synagogues. Yeah, you're sitting in my seat is an illustration of the power of makom kavua. That you go to a particular place in order for something to happen. So, what is our sacred space for our aging going to look like or going to be? Can we carve it out physically? Can we carve it out in time? Where are we going to go to do this work? And trust me, it sounds like such an obvious question, but it's a really important piece of our orientation, the where of doing this work. Yeah, because only when we have a where do we get to open up to the other stuff. So I'm inviting us to contemplate that where. And then I'll invite you also to share in your groups, is there an inner where for you? And what are your tools for accessing it? Does it happen? Thank you, Jeff. There we are. There's a good illustration of sacred space right there. Jeff right now is, not, maybe you're not cycling right now, Jeff. Forgive me if I misspeak, but your sacred space is when you're cycling. Okay. So Jeff, I'll assign you to a room and we will see how we go. Yeah, so discuss. Question for discussion, and I'm going to give us a nice amount of time for it. I'm going to break us out into groups of 2 or 3. I'm just making the sausage here, so bear with me for a moment. There we are. And I am going to give us 30 minutes in this space. So use a little bit of that time to introduce yourselves to each other, to get to know each other a little bit more. And then see what we can gather about sacred space and how we're going to do this work, where we're going to do this work, and why that is important. Okay. All right. Jane noted, and that will be fine. Okay. The class goes to, it's slated for an hour and a half. I should have said that at the beginning. I'm sorry. I'm going to tweak that slide while you guys are in breakout rooms. Okay. Everyone ready? Start by sharing names and purpose, and I'll see you soon. Oh my goodness. Welcome back. Welcome back. I was watching when you're God on Zoom, you get to watch how quickly people are coming back. And I'm just going to infer that the conversations might have gone to a reasonably deep place of any kind because you all had to wait to be turfed out. So I am, please go ahead and thank your roommates in the chat. I always encourage that. Thank you, Leah, for getting that ball rolling. And I always feel at this point that I have to say, I'm really sorry for interrupting you. And I am. I'm really sorry for interrupting you. It feels to me like that might have been quite a good beginning, one way and another. So let me just offer a little prompt. Okay, I'm going to offer a little prompt. And you can drop this in your chat or you can begin to capture it in your journal. Just these two very simple questions that I often use after a breakout so that we can capture the wisdom. What resonated for you and what did you discover that was new? It looks like those were good rooms. Yeah. So it can be if you want to share it with the room, that's well and good. And if you want to just jot it down, because we know, don't we, as we become wiser and wiser, that things stay in our memory for less and less time. That's just the truth. So if there's wisdom that came up for you to capture, just go ahead and capture it. And if you want to share, that would be interesting. Not compulsory. Remember, not share or die. Interesting, Jane. Yeah. Meditation really is hard. So I have my, lovely. Thank you, Leah. The just regarding meditation, my study partner for many years, once a rabbi, now an analyst, um, uh, came up through sort of the ashrams and the trip to India when you were 18. They were very formative of her spirituality. And she always says that everybody thinks that meditation is gentle and quiet and easy, and that's not true. In fact, it is challenging. In fact, it requires an iron will to meditate. You really, really do have to keep pulling yourself back into the practice. And I find that to be true as well. Ellie, you would be welcome. We are, whether in person or from afar, that would be lovely. And yes, yes, the with meditation, it's the sort of constant falling out and falling in, I find. The something that Hasidic wisdom very, very much lifts up is the idea that human beings are ephemeral, and because we're ephemeral, we fluctuate. So we're constantly in a state of we're constantly in this sort of state of, hello, I must be going. And we're always up and down, and that makes it hard for us to be consistent in whatever practice we choose. It requires an act of will, and it also, I think, requires a considerable degree of compassion to remind us towards ourselves to say, okay, I didn't meditate yesterday, but today I'm meditating. Or I didn't meditate for a year, but today I'm meditating. Or I didn't do yoga for 2 years, but today I'm meditating. But today I'm on the mat. Or I didn't go to shul for quite a while. But today I'm going to tune into services. And the ideas that we live in the present tense are helpful for that. Thank you. So I want to talk just for we'll aim to finish at 10:30. I want to talk just a little bit about collecting our wisdom. As a prelude to this work and any other work about aging that we might do. And I want to say that not all aging work is about December. Yeah, there's November work, there's October work, there's September work, and all of those exist as well. But particularly for December work, I want to offer the idea that it sounds like some of you have already made your way to, which is that the space in which we do the work exists as much inside us as it does outside us. So it helps to have a makom kavua. It helps to have a physical space that we come to, because that conditions us to turn our thoughts a certain way. But ultimately, the work of December is inner work. It's work that's done inside of us. And Reb Zalman has this beautiful idea of furnishing our solitude. I just want to offer that as a phrase. And so the space is the space inside us, and all of the beautiful, beautiful attributes that we feel are furniture for that space. We've gone deep today. We've considered some deep stuff. I want to lift us into considering, remember, we began with gratitude. What are some of the beautiful attributes that we feel that furnish that inner place inside, so that it's a place that we can actually look forward to going to and not dreading? Drop it in the chat. Gratitude is definitely one of them, but what are others that feed us, that furnish that place? I see people being very thoughtful. That's lovely. Mhm. Yes, blue sky for sure. We're lucky in California. There's a lot of it, mostly. Yes, yes, yes. Ellie and Leah, look how you're in agreement, and Ellie and Susan in agreement as well there. Yes, I think that compassion, it doesn't mean that we let ourselves off the hook, right? But if we are constantly self-critical in that space, I should, I must, I can't, I should, it hurts the furniture. It hurts the furniture, and we need to be able to be gentle to ourselves there. Yes. I find that for my own sacred place inside, some of the things that furnish it actually start out as being physical. So for me, good food furnishes that place. Food that really matters, food that I eat with intention. The word nefesh in Hebrew means both soul and appetite, as it turns out. So I invite us to consider, I'm beginning to, there's something more in the chat. Yes, good coffee. Yes, yes, yes. Things that sort of, with the food things, it's like, ach, a machaya. Yeah, they're really important furniture, actually. Yeah, I have a whole soapbox about this, about, The generally poor, IKAR is an exception, but the generally poor quality of synagogue food. Synagogue food, of all food, requires to be delicious. Yeah, that's all about that for today. Yes, peace and non-judgment and warmth. That can be physical warmth in the external space as well. A blanket or a quilt is a good thing. Yes, lovely. So do you see how as we what we're doing is we're creating the space to do this work rather than just leaping into it. And that gives it an element of intentionality and an element of safety, because when we contemplate the end of our lives, it can feel very scary. So the first thing we do is we set the container and we make the container safe. And that has, in all of what we've done today, all of that is going to creating the container. I want to add one more thing, which is an exercise from the book, which is if you have available to you over the course of the week, single piece, it does not need to be complicated, a single piece of paper. Actually, I need a blank sheet to demonstrate this. Hold on a minute. Single sheet of paper, split it into 4, rather like we did with the mandala in the conscious aging classes. The headings are gratitude, forgive, still to do, and intuition. And we begin to get a sense, if we just capture, what do I feel grateful for today? What needs forgiving today? What do I still want to be doing today and with the rest of my life? And did I have a moment today where this is a really interesting one, because it's about trusting ourselves. Did I have a moment today where my intuition got me somewhere? Or did I have a moment today when I was in touch with my intuition? So I want to commend that also as an ongoing practice for building your sacred space. Yeah, I find it useful to keep the piece of paper by the bed. It's really very helpful. And which brings me to the for next time. If you haven't already got the book, please get and read the book, because it will be helpful. And things in the book will resonate with things that we do here. Please begin in whatever way to furnish your inner place. Okay, or your sacred place. I'm going to change that on the slide, actually. Begin to furnish your sacred place. And you can take that in whatever way. It can be your basement, it can be your roof, it can be under a particular tree in your local park, it can be a bench, it can be an office, it can be your bedroom, it can be a table in your bedroom, and we can begin to furnish the inner place as well, with gratitude, with forgiveness, with compassion, with deliciousness, with awe is another one. The feeling of I wonder, the feeling of enchantment with the world. That's always good furniture for the inner place. And now that we have a place in which to meet ourselves and a place in which to work, for next session, please be brave. Bring an object that symbolizes your death or your relationship to your death. And together we'll do a little gallery. And together we are going to begin just to lay the ground for what that kind of work might look like for us. And if there's take up within the community, then we can do another Death Cafe and go deeper. And if there isn't, that's okay too. But I want us to dedicate the next hour to that. Any thoughts, any questions, any reflections? Oh yes, Ellis, I'm glad you brought in a dog. I'm very glad you brought in a dog. One day, in all my copious spare time, I'm going to sit down and create a whole 10-session course about lessons we learn from our pets. Yeah, they teach us so much about my rabbi in England, Jonathan Wittenberg, wrote a book about what his dog has taught him about being human. Yes, agree. Pets are really important. And by the way, they teach us about December. Yeah, in the general scheme of things, I don't know if anyone has had the grievous experience of compassionately putting a pet to sleep, but they teach us a great deal about dying. Yes, they do. They do. Lydia, we will miss you. Yes, yes. Thank you, Ellis. Yes, yes. And how? We'll miss you, Lydia, but that's a great reason for not being at class. That is a truly fantastic reason for not being at class. Please go and march for all of us, and recordings will be available. Okay. So one final slide, and then I can let you go into your holiday Sunday. And thank you for coming on a holiday Sunday to be with me. I value your time by definition, and I extra value your time on a holiday weekend. Thank you. I like to offer a closing blessing. I will open this up for people to offer their own from their heart if they wish. But for the moment, since it's the first class, let me offer that we just sit still for a moment, and I'm going to offer my favorite translation of the priestly blessing. So I'll offer it in Hebrew and then in my favorite English translation. So just take a moment, a couple of breaths. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasim lecha shalom. May we be blessed and safe. May we be luminous and loved. May we be joyous and whole. And we say amen. Let's unmute to say goodbye to each other, and we can get on with our days. God bless.
Thank you very much.
Rabbi Nachman tomorrow night, 7 o'clock on Zoom, if you want that. We're going to be talking about joy, which is a good piece of furniture for the inner room. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.